Hello and welcome back to the channel. Guess it's been a while since I posted here. I'm very sorry about that. I've been very busy in my personal life. But I do want to get these videos out about all the draft prospects, especially right before the draft is coming out. So obviously, draft coming on the 24th. We will be live streaming that as well, so be prepared for that. But I want to give out my opinions on this quarterback class. Is this quarterback class as good as 2023, 2024? No. Is it as bad as 2022? No. I think there are some quarterbacks in this draft class that could be starters. I think there's quarterbacks in the draft class that could be, actually decent backups. But it's not like, a very superstar kind of draft class. So I'll go ahead and put that out there. One of the things I also want to say is like during these kind of videos, because I get to put on my own channel, I grade differently than I've seen other people do. Like I have tiers like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Saw how I did last year. But if I give you a tier 1, it means I feel like you're going to be an automatic star. Tier 1 is like a first round 1 through 24 esque kind of like player, and then we get to tier 2, which tier 2 is a way wider gap. It's like 25 to about 50. Like I said, going into deep into the second round, and then tier 3 is like 51 to 100 because it's just like you can really move around there in tier 3. In each tier, I will also signify if I think's high, mid, or low. That means like how I feel like around where they should be drafted. That's just my personal opinion, and I'm not going to raise up a quarterback just because of position value. It's more about how I feel like it's like talent and like the role that you'll have. So that's kind of how like I grade, and you'll be able to see those throughout the rest of the kind of videos. So to start off, are there any tier 1 quarterbacks in this draft class? No, there's not. However, I do have a fringe first round quarterback in this quarterback ranking. I'll get to it first. Let me talk about the bottom of the barrel, and that is the third round quarterbacks. That is Jaxson Dart, Will Howard, and Quinn Ewers. Now, I'll first talk about Will Howard and Quinn Ewers because I feel like it's understandable why they'll be more in the third round, and then I'll talk about Jaxson Dart. First of all, Will Howard came from Kansas State, then went to OSU. Like I said, had a pretty good year, but there were still some things that I was just like, I can't get on board with Will Howard. Obviously, some people talk about his rushing ability. It's not really there. It's kind of like an awkward kind of rushing ability. He's definitely not a dual threat. And I'll talk about this during into this video about the different kind of styles that I see. I really think that Will Howard is a facilitator. I think all three of these quarterbacks are really more facilitators. They fit in a good role where obviously they had good weapons and they didn't have the athletic ability to be a dual threat, and they didn't really have the mentality of being like having a gunslinger mentality that you'll see a little bit later on. There's just nothing really that's like speaking to me of like Will Howard is going to develop into this great quarterback. Like I think that he could be serviceable. I think that there is a chance that maybe possibly that he could develop into a 5-year quarterback in the league. Maybe. But I'm not thinking that it's going to be like this massive jump. There were some games that you saw from Will Howard that either Chip Kelly did not trust him or he just flat out did not play well. Like, let's talk about it. So, talk about the good games first. So, the good games for Will Howard, obviously, Notre Dame game, made that great play. It's a really great play to Jeremiah Smith, who is absolute outstanding wide receiver as a freshman. And also made other good plays during that game, too. You were like, okay, that's where he was starting to get some of the hype as a first-round quarterback. Don't understand that one. But still, I could understand, like, in that moment, he had a pretty good game. Also had a really good game in the Oregon game, the second Oregon game. Not the first one, even though the first one, he was starting to have a good game, and then he had a middle lapse that kind of just ruined that whole entire game for him. Obviously, him getting tackled, and basically the clock running out, no timeouts. That was the end of the game. Obviously, that kind of ruined what could have been a good game for him. But, man, the bad games. The bad games are really, really bad. Like, okay, first of all, let's just talk about the fact that against Michigan, Ohio State did not have a good game plan or something. I don't know why, but they were not willing. They were not willing to throw the ball at all. And when they did throw the ball, Will Howard could not make plays. It was so frustrating to watch because it was like they were scared of the secondary of Michigan. And so like I don't I I really don't understand what happened there. I mean, that was a whole conversation during that time as well, of just like, you know, a lot of people were calling for Ryan Day's job, and then now they end up winning the national championship. So you see how that changes with just within like, a little bit over a month. Like that's how fast football, how fast conversations change. Um, Also, he didn't have a good game against Penn State. It was not. It was not good. Like I said, like they ended up winning the game, but at the end of the day, it was not because of Will Howard. I think that's another thing too. You have to watch with some of these quarterbacks is like I don't consider a win a quarterback stat. So I've seen some people say that Will Howard is going to be a good quarterback because he's a winner. That does not tell me anything. Is AJ McCarron an all-time NFL great? No. Did he have a couple of decent seasons in the NFL? Yeah. But is he like, one of the most winningest quarterbacks in college football history? Yes. Like winning does not give you anything in the NFL. Just saying that straight up. Now let's move on to Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was a quarterback that last year, obviously there was some stuff that I was just like, he's almost there. I was like, I could see where people were trying to push him as a first round quarterback, but really after this year, it's just every single time there was a whole bunch of distraction with him and Arch Manning. Obviously, a lot of fans want Arch Manning to go in. There's a lot of pressure on Arch Manning to go in, so we'll see like what happens there at Texas this upcoming season. But Quinn Ewers had some good games, but if it was bad, it was also bad. I don't think it was nearly his lows were not nearly as bad as Will Howard's, but it was still like I can tell right now this is not going to work in the NFL. Like, let's just talk about the fact that in Quinn Ewers, you had the Florida game. Florida, absolutely good. We'll talk about Jaxson Dart Florida game too, which was horrendous. It was a good Florida game against for Quinn Ewers. But twice against Georgia, which Georgia had a great defense, great team as well. But twice against Georgia, you looked horrible. In fact, your feet are so bad that it made Kelvin Banks look bad as well. And I like Kelvin Banks. We'll talk about that in technically the guard because I think he should move into guard. He'll be best suited for him. There are some schemes I could see him be a tackle, but I'd rather him be a guard. But there were so many times that you could see in games where Quinn Ewers, like he's not trusting his eyes. He doesn't have quite the arm to make some of the throws either, and like a lot of underthrown balls, especially last year, and then also this year too with Isaiah Bond and also Matthew Golden. It's frustrating to watch because it's just like, man, this is not good. The other one too that I don't think it talks about enough is that Arkansas game. That was so bad. It was so bad. And Arkansas's defense was very, very hit or miss. Like, obviously, you got the Tennessee game. They play pretty decent. Nico, which everything's happening with him today, or right now, But Arkansas had a very hit or miss defense, and they made you look absolutely horrendous. Like, it's those kind of games where I'm just like, I can't trust it anymore. At first, I was like, okay, he can sit for a year, he can develop, and he might be good. But in the day, I think Quinn Ewers and also Will Howard would be the same as I think as like a college trash. Some people are going to be very, very hype on them. They might end up being a second round pick. I think they should probably be a third round pick. But at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to make that much of an impact in the NFL. It's a very sad thing to be able to say, but like I think that there have been some times where people have tried to push on this narrative that, oh no, this quarterback's going to be good. And it's because of the fact that we've had two back-to-back good drafts of quarterbacks, and this isn't that. Speaking on that, the last of the conglomeration of five, Jaxson Dart. I legitimately have spent way much more time than I probably should, like hours, trying to find why he was chosen to be the one that skyrocketed up, draft boards. If you watch Ground Gurus with me and Luke, we've joked some here and there about the fact that Jaxson Dart is getting first round hype. Not only first round hype, but top 10 hype. And in some cases, I won't even look at a mock draft past when somebody has put him at 3. They put Shedeur at 2 and they put him at 3. I like legitimately. I did like hours of research trying to find out. I was like, okay, who is his? Okay, I was like, okay, who is his agent? Okay, I don't know who. I can't find a connection with his agent. Okay, Todd McShay, what are you looking at? Why are you saying he looks like Josh Allen sometimes? I like legitimately. I don't want to get really into it, but like the hype around him makes no sense because not only is he in this system, the same exact system with like a quarterback friendly system like a Tennessee or like or Ole Miss. Like I said, do they put up numbers? Absolutely. But when it comes out to developing quarterbacks, we haven't seen it yet. We legitimately haven't seen it yet. Like Hendon Hooker, like he got drafted to the Lions. He's sitting behind Jared Goff. Hopefully, we don't know where his trajectory is going to go. But like, it hasn't really shown to be like, okay, well, no, this is really good. Matt Corral drafted by the Panthers, now at the Stallions. Like, I don't want to compare. Like, oh, it's like it's like a college thing because I think this is a terrible way to look at it. But the fact that you have Jaxson Dart coming out, who had a horrible Florida game. And some of these people were just like, no, it's okay. It's perfectly fine. No, when he needed to be the guy, when he needs to step up, he was throwing interceptions. He was not delivering. In the game that Ole Miss needed to make it to the college football playoff, he missed it. He messed up. And also, the other thing, too, is that the Georgia game, he didn't have a good game against Georgia either. Yes, he won, but he was moving around. He was scattered. Like I said, when they were not able to run the ball, when anytime the Ole Miss was not able to run the ball, and it was on him to be the guy, he could not do what he needed to do. I don't want to seem like I'm hating on the guy, so I know that some people like him, and I think that out of that 3 conglomerate, I think there's a chance that Jaxson Dart could possibly work out. But am I putting him anywhere near top of second or first round? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, I will say, Jaxson Dart, you did have a good game against Arkansas. I'll give you that. But everything else, I'm just not impressed. I'm not. And I hope all the best for you. I think like if you go to a system that sits you for a while and you're able to develop to actually learn the mechanics of the game, then maybe, possibly, you have good mobility and you got a pretty decent arm. But as far as like what's up here, he doesn't have it yet, and you can't bet on him getting that in the NFL, even with really good coaching. So that's like the conglomerate of 5. Took a little time talking about them, but now I want to get to the actual 4 quarterbacks that I think could, in the right system, be beneficial in the NFL and potentially find a role in this wild and crazy league. So first off, at 4, I got Tyler Shough. Is it Shough or Shough? I don't like. I've heard both things. Like I said, to be fair, Tyler has been in talks for a very long time. If you know anything about what happened, speaking about the 2022 draft, back then, Tyler Shough and also Bryce, not Bryce, sorry, um, Purdy, both of them were considered in their Purdy sophomore season. Shough's like, I want to say his redshirt freshman season. Both of them in like those Walter football kind of way too early mock drafts were considered to be like a fringe first round pick. But no one remembers that. I don't understand how no one remembers that, but I do. And that's the reason why I had Brock Purdy. I don't know why I could have said Bryce before, but that's why I had Brock Purdy as a 3rd round pick. I had him around, Sam Howell, and I was like, hey, if he goes in the right system, I feel like he does pretty good. But the fact that he has been in the in college for so long, he is going to be 26 by the time the NFL season starts. Is it Brandon Weeden again? I don't think so. I don't think it's Brandon Weed again because obviously a lot of things happened in his college career that wasn't really fair for him. Obviously, a lot of injuries, sitting behind players, as the usual thing. But this year at Louisville, he had a pretty decent year. And there are some things that you can see on the tape that'd be like, hey, you know what? I think that Tyler Shough could be a decent backup. One of those kind of roles. I legitimately could see a possibility of, being a Mike White, Jake Browning-esque kind of like, career trajectory where like most of the time he's a backup and every now he could like come in and then have a pretty good game. But for the most part, it's not somebody that you were like, okay, this guy is going to be somebody that I can trust. I think that Tyler Shough could have a decent, career. Obviously, he's going to be 26 when he gets drafted. Well, the start of the season. So that 4-year contract, he'll be 30 at the end of it. So you'll get most of his prime years. So I think that there are some teams that are going to be like, you know what? Sure, we'll draft him in the, late second round, early third round. I think Tyler Shough, I have him as more of like a mid tier 3. So like I said, I would probably say more so in the second round. I would say more so in the second round for Tyler Shough. My thing is, he's old, and when he's not accurate, it is really bad. Like I said, there's still some stuff that you like to see. Obviously, there's some good games from him. Like I would say the Miami game was pretty good, as well as the goodness, I can't even read my own handwriting. What did I write down? I legitimately cannot read my own handwriting. Wow, that's bad. I cannot read my own handwriting because I had to write down I had to write down what I remembered from each quarterback. Sorry about that, but Tyler Shough, just for reference, this is what it looks like. Like I said, that's usually what I'm reading from is just almost like Scrabble. But some of the bad ones. I went on a tangent. Some of the bad ones are obviously Clemson. He had a really bad game, and also Virginia. Virginia was another one. Virginia one I actually watched because the safety that the Panthers were looking at, probably going to be like a third or fourth round pick from Virginia. So I was kind of like looking at him, and that's when I was like looking at Shough as well, and I was just like, ooh, I was like it's one of those things where you're like he's older, so like there's not as much that he can really elevate to. But at the end of the day, I think that some of it is just not really his fault, like him being old. Like some of these players that are old are just staying in the college for way too long. Him, I think, is a different story. But at the end of the day, he's going to be a backup. Maybe every now and then a spot starter, but that's what I feel like is like the backup of the quarterbacks. Now my top 3. 4-3. And if you've seen any of my videos before, especially the the beginning of the season predictions video, you know that I was really high on this quarterback coming in because I felt with the new head coach that he was going to elevate his game to where it wasn't before. Because obviously he showed traits. He had showed like his running ability. He has an amazing arm. It just was, some of the mental aspect, some of the accuracy just wasn't there. But I felt, hey, you're in a better offensive scheme. Maybe be able to, be able to grow. And I didn't see that. And for a while, I was holding out hope. But now, Jalen Milroe, you're my quarterback 3, and I have you as a high tier 3. I don't want him to be drafted in the first round. I think it's way too much high expectations for him. But I do think it's a second round pick. I really do think that he should be a late second round pick. And I'm not gonna be honest, like his fits, he has a couple of different fits. Like I think if he goes to, say the Giants where they can sit him for a year, maybe even 2, depending on how they feel with Jameis, who signed a 2-year contract. Like he needs development. And that's what I had at the the offseason was just like him being with Brian Dable. I was like, I think it's a really great, move for him is learning under him who took someone like a Josh Allen, who was able to develop him into be like, taking him down from that turnover machine, improving his accuracy as well, improving that middle aspect of his game. Brian Dable has connections to Alabama as well. I was like, that could be able to work. Like I said, I think that he fits in that scheme as well if he's allowed to sit and watch and learn. Before the Derek Carr injury, I said that there's a possibility that having him sit under Derek Carr and learn under Kellen Moore, who worked with Jalen Hurts, I thought that could also work for Jalen Milroe. Being able to develop okay, well, we'll be able to use your rushing ability. We'll be able to use, you have a pretty deep arm, just trying to work on that accuracy. Work at finding out things that work in his work with him. Same as I think technically with Dak Prescott, who was more of a dual threat, especially early on in his career. I just don't know if he can develop. And that's the reason why I have him so low. And I don't want to quit on him. I think there is a good quarterback in there somewhere, but it is going to take a lot of coaching. It's going to take a lot of patience. It's going to take a lot of coaching. And it's few and far between in this NFL landscape. He has to find the right system. And I just don't think he's going to – I honestly just don't think he's going to be drafted to the right spot. And he's going to end up flaming out. And I feel really bad about that. I think that Jalen Milroe could have a chance. He's very, very toolsy, but I can't bet on tools. Just the same as the thing I have with Anthony Richardson. I can't just bet on tools. Even though if you're the most toolest person, I will let somebody else deal with that. I can't trust that. So now we're going to the top two. And as I stated before, and for most people, I think most people have the same top two. That's going to be Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward is my quarterback one. I'll talk about Shedeur Sanders, but Cam Ward, I think consistently should be your quarterback one. Is he the best? No. Like I said, I'll talk about him. But I think that there are a lot of people who feel that it's a slight to put Cam over Shedeur because, you're hating on Shedeur. The reason why I'm saying that before I get into Shedeur is I want to preface that before I go into why I have Shedeur as my quarterback number 2 and why I have him as a low tier 2. Here's the thing. Shedeur shouldn't be a first-round pick, but he is going to be a first-round pick. If I'm going to be honest, if Shedeur was picked in the second round and he's able to be paired with, a Travis Hunter, if he's able to be paired with another incredible coach or something like that, like if he's going to the Giants, if he's going to the Browns, I think he could possibly work there. But if he's going there the top 3 pick with the pressure of being a top 3 pick, especially in New York, I don't think that's going to work out because I don't think he has these just talk about the tools with Jalen Milroe. You can't bet on that, but it's something that you can actually look at and be like, okay, well, maybe we can be able to form that. For Shedeur Sanders, he is just a good quarterback. That's it. He's not great. He's not amazing. He's not elite. He is just a good quarterback, which is fine. In certain schemes, he can be able to work out. Like, legitimately, if Shedeur was sitting behind Matthew Stafford for 2 years, or however long Matthew Stafford wants to work out, and Shedeur has an amazing offensive line, he has a good amount of weapons with Puka Nacua, or whatever happens with Devontae Adams if he's still able to be playing as well as he is, or whoever the Rams inevitably pick in the 4th or 5th round, they become a Pro Bowler. And also with a good offensive mind like Sean McVay, he could be able to work out there, being more of a facilitator, because that's what he is. He's a facilitator. Jalen Milroe, dual threat. Shedeur Sanders, but facilitator. They are legitimately on the two opposite ends of the spectrum. But at the end of the day, a lot of the discussion with Shedeur is very if you don't like him, then you're a hater, you hate his father, all this kind of stuff, all the the negativity of that kind of thing. I think that's the worst possible thing. There's the super duper positives that he's going to be the next superstar, and if you say otherwise, then you're a hater. If you believe that he is going to be good, then you're just you're just bandwagoning off of there's so much clutter about Shedeur Sanders, and some of it is like on his play style. Some of it is not really his fault. Some of it is just like, well, he's in the limelight. A lot of the problems is the way that media is interacting with Shedeur Sanders, and the way that he has acted also as well, placing the blame on his offensive line. Whether that be true or not, it's still not a good look, and it just gives more wood to the fire and to fan the flames that people say you're going to burn out in the NFL. I think that Shedeur has a chance, but it's going to take time, and it's going to have to be around a good team. I don't think Shedeur is the type of player that could be able to elevate a team above offensive line play, above what the weapons they have. Like, he has to have a good surrounding cast. And I don't want it to seem like a slight, but it is a little bit of a slight. Yes, was the offensive line bad last year? Sure. But were there times where he legitimately put himself in harm's way because he's rolling out, turning his back to the defense? So, like, obviously, you're not making a play while you're like, you can't even see where your wide receivers are going. By the time that you turn around, you can't get the ball away because, like I said, you're trying to readjust your feet. Like I said, his pocket awareness was not the best. Now, at times it was good, but he had the same as I think that happened in Auburn Bow. As an Auburn fan, Auburn Bow would not trust with offensive line because obviously offensive line was not very good when he was there, and he would bail out. He would bail out early, cause himself to be bad problems, and not be able to throw the ball down the field because he bailed out early. And then I'm seeing a lot of the same problems that I saw then. Now, I think Shedeur has really good anticipation. I think he's got really good accuracy. So, like, that's what I'm saying. As a facilitator in that kind of role as an offense, I think that he could work out in the NFL. But I'm not going to be super confident that he is automatically going to be, okay, he's going to be a superstar. If I'm going to be honest, I want to compare like this, the next two quarterbacks to where I had last year. I would put Shedeur like right behind JJ. JJ, I said that last year he was also needed a good supporting cast. I felt pretty confident he was going to go to the Vikings. And I was like, that's the perfect spot for him. If Shedeur goes to a spot, which it is very fluctuating where he's going to go, if he goes to a spot that has a good surrounding supporting cast, then maybe he can work on the NFL. If not, I think the pressure is going to be a lot, because a lot of people are going to be like doubting him, and especially if like we see what we saw sometimes during the season where like it was getting to him and him placing the blame on the offensive line and placing the blame on other stuff. Like I'm very, very worrisome with that. And like, I don't know. I want to believe in him, but I can't put my stamp of approval on him just yet. So Shedeur, hopefully go to a good situation, but otherwise I just don't have the confidence. The only quarterback that I have confidence enough that they're going to do well in the NFL, and like I said previously before, that I think they at their very peak could be around the 14 to 18 range as far as like quarterbacks in the NFL, is going to be Cam Ward. He's the quarterback one. He is a gunslinger. Now, his stats might say that he only threw 7 interceptions, but if you watched any of his games, there were a lot of times that a lot of those passes should have been picked off. Like I said, I love his confidence, but sometimes his confidence and his arm do not match up. A lot of times he wants to make throws that his arm can't catch, which, you know what? In the NFL setting, with a good coach is able to manufacture some of that to make sure that he's not going to try to like, oh, I can make this throw. Then I think that you can rein some of that in. I think he does have a good arm. He doesn't have the best arm, but I think he does have a good arm. I think he has really good under pressure skills. Like I said, the middle makeup of him, I feel really confident with Cam Ward. Like I said, sometimes he plays a little hero ball, but I think as far as moving around in the pocket, seeming to be very, very calm, it's just more about that. I feel like I can make a play. I'm going to make a play, but not the Carson Wentz, Will Levis-esque. That's where we want to say that. hero ball like Carson Wentz and Will Levis, and there's a hero ball as um I I'm like, oh no, I'm good. I'm not stressed. I'm so not stressed that I'm like I can make this throw. And I think in the NFL, if he's behind a good offensive line like he's projected to be at the Tennessee, I feel that's going to be good for him. Now, does Tennessee have really good weapons? No, so it'll be interesting to see. But I think that Cam Ward could potentially work out in the NFL. He's projected to be the first overall pick. Obviously, that's way too high for him. But in this draft class, it doesn't have a top quarterback and not a lot of blue chip players. Obviously, Chase is going to go in that trajectory, and we'll see how Callahan does. Hopefully, he's able to develop Cam Ward, and Cam Ward can be able to reach his potential. Like I said, at his peak, he might be able to do a 14 to 18-esque range. More than likely, he's going to struggle in his rookie year. He might have a bounce back in his second year, but overall, I think he will be I want to say closer to like a 20 to like a 24 range. For the most part, his career trajectory might be like a Carr, like a Derek Carr, which is not bad. It's not bad, but it's not first overall pick worthy. And like I said, like he's the only one that I'm really like I would actually hitch my wagon to say like I think he'd be able to work on the NFL. I think he's definitely a starter. I think Shedeur is a starter, but only in a certain situation. Cam Ward, I can see him go in different situations. Like obviously, the Titans are a fit because they're probably going to take him. He could go to the Giants. I think that could work out really well for him, especially going him with Brian Dable as well. And I think him and the Browns with Kevin Stefanski, his scheme, I think that obviously there's a lot more holes in the Browns. I think that he could still make it work, but obviously that's not going to happen. He's going to go with the Titans. That's pretty much almost a done deal at this point in time. But I think the Cam Ward has a shot. He has some good games. He has some bad games, and really and truly, it's more so a mix of both. Whenever I try to come with the good and bad games, I forgot to do one for them from Milroe. Sorry about that. Milroe, good games LSU, bad games obviously. Oh, good games was LSU and Georgia. Bad games obviously was Michigan and Michigan, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. If you watch any of those games, unless a lot of people say he's trash. Sorry about that. Forgot to mention that. Back to Cam Ward. Good game. LSU, Louisville. Cal, Louisville. Cal, he comes back, he makes a lot of plays. Obviously, like there's some bad in there. Louisville, obviously there's still some bad in there too. And even in the bad games, outside of Florida State. Florida State was a really bad game. You watched that one too. I mean, I love two of Florida State's defenders too, so like, that's another thing too. Azariah Thomas and also like Joshua Farmer. And there are some times where it's just like, ooh, like that's he needs to rein some of that in. The Virginia Tech game is a bad game, but it's like a good and bad game. It's like, wow, he's going against I think two pretty good Virginia Tech players, Dorian Strong and also Peoples. I think both of them are pretty good players in this draft class. Obviously, he made some pretty dumb decisions in that game. They end up winning that game controversially. And like you see the good and bad. Like in Cam Ward's tape, I don't think there is a objectively okay. This is a good game. This is a bad game. It's a mixture of both. Like I said, I think that with the right coaching, kind of rein in some of that, especially if you have a good offensive line, like what I said, he's going to Tennessee. So that's the reason why I think he's going to be a good quarterback. Maybe possibly great, but more often than not, in the NFL, I think he might be just, he's a good quarterback. That's it. But that's my quarterback rankings. Obviously, this is not a really great class, but I think there are some role players. If you have any questions about well, I didn't talk about this quarterback. I didn't talk about this quarterback. There are two quarterbacks in my sleepers that I think are probably going to be fourth round picks that I could see in certain schemes working out. Same thing I did last year. I talked about Pratt, who I probably shouldn't have. I was on the fringe with him. And I talked about Spencer Rattler, which Spencer Rattler, he got some starting minutes, and he's probably going to start this upcoming year, depending on what happens with the Saints. Like I said, my sleepers, I'll discuss more about that later. But if you have any questions about the quarterbacks, some of the times I was kind of rambling. Sorry about that. Um, Kind of getting used to making some of these videos again. It's been a while. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Like I said, I put in a community post as well about the upcoming videos I'm going to be posting every single day. If you have any questions about prospects or anything like that, you can also post that there. I'd love to see your comments. Another thing too, if you want to hear see some of the videos that I have been making in the off season, you can go over to Gridiron Gurus. Luke and I have been talking about like the free agency additions. We've been talking about like draft needs as well. So we have another one that's coming. We've already done the NFC. We're coming out with the AFC one as well, and we'll also do a mock draft as well. I said as well a lot right there. But first one of the many draft position rankings this upcoming draft class, and I'm about to crank out a lot of videos in the next less than 2 weeks. So, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and goodbye.